So he's getting from one end line of our turf to another end line. He is simply locomoting. Locomotion exercises is essential considering it's what we do every day in life. Whether it's walk, running, biking, climbing, hiking, swimming, bounding, leaping, right? Those are all aspects of locomotion from different levels of violence or performance. Hi friends, PC here with Dylan Foss at Gravity and Oxygen, coming to you with the 612th edition of Turf Talk Tuesday. The KISS theory, lower body, keeping it simple, silly. Right? Last week we talked about the upper body.
Yes, we did.
Now we're going to talk about the lower half. So let's get right to the discussion of basic principles of leg training. We love to say here at the gym, do legendary things, and you can't spell legendary without leg day, right, D?
Yep.
So here's some basic principles. Come on in, Brad, if everyone can see my or Dylan's wonderful handwriting. So when it comes to principles of lower body, focus on a hip hinge movement, a knee hinge, pushing and pulling mechanics of the muscles, locomotion, which simply means moving from point A to point B, and then try to train your legs in all three directions. Okay, we'll get back to the final three principles in a second. We're going to demonstrate some examples of these first five principles. Hip hinging is essential. We understand that the hips or the glutes are the powerhouse of locomotion and sports performance, and also plays a big part in prevention of back injury. Correct, Dylan?
I was going to say it's our decelerator, right? If your quads are your gas pedal, then your glutes are your brakes.
Well said. I love that analogy. So Dylan is going to first show us an example of a hip hinge. We have this nice, very light kettlebell here, weighs about 100 pounds. He's going to show an example. Notice the slight saw knees at about 3 degrees of bend. The spine is flat. He's then going to elevate and lift that kettlebell. And then with that motion, he's extending his hips, pressing forward towards his hands. As he continues to repeat the motion, you can see this is a hip dominant exercise. So if I had a pencil going straight through the axis of his body, it's going right through the hip joint to provide a perfect, what's called Romanian deadlift hip hinge. That's the principle of the Romanian. Okay. Now, if we wanted to do something more knee hinge dominant, we would give Dylan perhaps some different kettlebells. He's going to hold them in his hand, and now he's going to focus on a knee dominant exercise, what we call a squat. So before we can do any load, focus on practicing simple air squats. So I'm doing a weightless version, and Dylan is doing a loaded version. Okay. So notice it's dominant in the knees, no longer in the hips. So hip hinge and knee hinge are two basic foundations of lower body training. Next would be pushing and pulling. So Dylan was just doing an exercise where he's pushing into the ground, whereas the mechanics of the hips with the kettlebell was a pulling dominant exercise. So combined with that hip hinge, you may find more of a hip dominant exercise, and then with a knee hinge, a push dominant exercise. We're going to pull out this this box right here and show you further examples of a knee hinge and a hip hinge. So Dylan's going to go ahead and put his right foot on the left end of the box, and then right now his knee is in a significant degree of bend or flexion, and then he's going to stand up from that box, and now he's coming up and down. Okay, so he's doing a pushing exercise, pressing the foot into the, whoop, careful, he forgot his Wheaties today. All right, so he's pushing his foot in, creating that elevation. Another principle, if you want to think about it, is level change. Dylan is going from the ground to a higher surface, so we're adding level change to his knee hinge push exercise. Now, if I take the same box here, I'm going to demonstrate this one and do a reverse hyperextension. My hips are off the edge. Now I'm holding onto the box, and then as I elevate and separate, I'm creating a pulling mechanism of my glutes in my lower half. Okay, so the first exercise with the Romanian deadlift was feet fixed, upper body moving. This one was upper body fixed, the lower body moving, but the same mechanics for the same muscle group. That would be considered your mechanical pull. Now another aspect is locomotion, correct? So say Dylan takes the same 2 kettlebells, all right? Let's bring it out here to the sun again. I'll push this out every way. Okay. Locomotion, getting from point A to point B. Our boxes here on the turf are about 13 feet long, so Dylan's going to give me a high knee tuck, all right, on the next one, into a deep lunge. So he's getting from one end line of our turf to another end line. He is simply locomoting. Locomotion exercises is essential considering it's what we do every day in life. Whether it's walk, running, biking, climbing, hiking, swimming, bounding, leaping, right? Those are all aspects of locomotion from different levels of violence or performance. So if you have even more fancy equipment besides kettlebells or dumbbells for walking lunges, we have this really pretty tank over here. So our newest rock star is going to join us here. All right. Dylan is going to get his paws on our sled. You can use any sled. This one's a mechanical-based version. And now Dylan is once again going from point A to point B. All right, lifting his knees up. This is a great exercise. Should you happen to have any history of low back history, herniations, discomfort, this is not loading your spine with compression. Dillan is showing another variation of a locomotion exercise. He's doing a reverse tractor. Now he's getting knee extension, really blazing the quads, whereas the previous exercise focused on all muscle groups, glutes, quads, hamstrings, and calves. Now he's doing a reverse toe. Okay, see that? So a sled is a fantastic piece of equipment when it comes to lower body training. Okay, so in review of basic principles of the legs, a hip hinge dominant, a knee hinge dominant, you should be having pushing and pulling, focus on locomotion, and then now we're going to move in all three planes of motion. So as Dillan right here grabs these dumbbells, okay, he's going to do a forward step hinge towards his toes. So this would be considered the sagittal plane, or simply said front to back. Even if he's doing a walking lunge, that is going linear. Now Dillan is going to perform a lateral lunge. Okay, notice the hinge, one leg is straight, one knee is bent. Okay, he's moving in the frontal plane. It's very confusing because it's called frontal, but he's moving in the plane of motion of a sliding glass door, and that's lateral. The third one is transverse. So we're going to show you two versions. Dillan's going to open up his hips away from the camera and then returning towards you again. All right, so that's a rotational lunge, and your hip joint is experiencing a turn, and that's important for everyday life. Okay. The other one would be doing a reverse curtsy. So as he crisscrosses his back leg, he's still going to experience rotation in the hip joint. This is internal rotation as he crosses that midline. So rotation both open and closed is important. Okay. In review, hip hinge, knee hinge, pushing and pulling, locomotion, and then move your legs in all three directions. Now, when it comes to focusing on strength, go heavy. So weights like this will be able to generate force production in your muscles. If you want to grow your muscles, limit the amount of rest you have. So if you did a heavy set of goblet squats, only limit yourself to 30 to 45 seconds rest max, and then repeat again. And due to going into your next set pre-fatigued, you're already setting yourself up for that duress of the muscle, which can make it grow more tissue.
Yes.
Correct?
Ideally, you're not going to be able to sustain the same amount of reps for as long, or just in general, right? You're going in pre-fatigued to the next set, so you're not going to be able to do the 12 reps that you did the first time, but instead after those 30 seconds, you may only be able to do 10.
That's correct. Due to the decreased rest, expect decreased performance.
Yes.
Well said. And then the last principle is, if you're focusing on stamina, go for extended time of contraction. Work into 1 minute, 90 seconds to 2.5 minutes of the same exercise, and then you're going to create acidic levels, lactic acid development, and then muscle fatigue. And stamina is defined as your capacity to withstand muscular fatigue.
One of my two favorite ones for those are doing, say, step-ups for 1 minute on each leg, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Or just without even weight, just doing walking lunges for, maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes.
Absolutely. Okay. Right. So now you're tying in the principles. You're doing a locomotive exercise for stamina improvement. So as you can see, based on our principles, as we come back to the board again, you can intermatch, okay, the creativity. Come on right here real close, Brad. So now we intermix. So I may do something that's hip hinging, okay, that's going to be focusing on strength. I may be focusing on stamina, but doing a locomotion exercise. Push the sled for 3 minutes straight. Walking lunge, like Dillan said. So the creativity of your programming is intermixing these principles and having a lot of fun with that to prevent redundancy and boredom with your workout.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You can keep it simple and still get a lot out of it.
Did you just say KISS theory? Keep it simple?
I did.
Guys, thank you again for watching Lower Body KISS theory. Be on the lookout next week for our testimony with one of our Rockstar members here as we lean towards our wonderful Deca Mile event here on October 30th. And like we usually say here in the gym,
good energy always wins.
very good. We'll see you soon.